back to Candid Conversations. We're here for season 2, Candice. How are you feeling about that?
I'm ready. Yes.
Fantastic. So we were trying to figure out what would we do to start off season 2 with a bang? And we thought, well, maybe we want to get some viewer questions. And we're like, well, then who's going to ask them? And we're like, well, let's get Bob. So those of you who have been really good listeners and viewers of our podcast know that Bob Dignan is the man behind the scenes helping us produce this podcast.
Yes, I've yet to be on mic until today.
So we've asked Bob to step in, get some FaceTime, and interview us with some questions that viewers and listeners have sent in, as well as some of your own questions, Bob.
Yeah, so I sprinkled in a few of my own.
Tell our viewers what Bob's title is.
Oh.
Yeah, Bob, why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers? Yeah.
Yeah, I work over at the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning here at the University of Illinois. I'm the Associate Director for Instructional Media Resources. And this little space that we keep recording in, the Media Hub, happens to be in our center. And that's why we've been using it this whole time, and I've been in the background.
Yeah, I just thank you, Bob, because I just know you as the man, and you are definitely been really supportive of the podcast, and we're appreciative of that. So
yeah,
we're really looking forward to you interviewing us today. We're sitting on the other side of the table as the guests. So,
you are the guests.
Yeah.
Remember to be candid.
Yes, of course.
We will try.
It's Candid Conversations.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we start off with a quicker one, and one that's maybe just a little lighter. This first couple of questions is going to be kind of looking backward. So especially the last maybe year since you've been doing this podcast. So what's one thing that impacted you or you took away from one of the guests that you've had on season 1? Have you thought of something?
Yeah.
Yes. So we had a lot of wonderful guests over the season. If I had to think about one guest, I think Tekita Bankhead from the Geese College of Business, when she was talking about code switching, she mentioned that she doesn't code switch. And it reminded me that she said that she doesn't code switch because she said, why are you the one that has to change for other people? And so it reminded me, why are you switching for other people? And I kind of thought why am I changing myself for other people? And, trying to think about, there is a level of risk to that, when you're switching for other people, but it really kind of got me thinking when I'm in certain environments, why am I changing or switching?
Yeah,
and
do you really need
to do that? So, that's one thing that I took away from season 1. How about you, Chris?
So I'm going to cop out a little bit and not name one guest, but it's kind of a general theme.
You did an AI overview of everyone?
No.
Okay.
I should have done that. That's a great idea. But I think it was just this idea that we had a lot of people as guests that were senior, really high senior leaders. We had deans, we had a vice chancellor on the show, and they all ended up being regular human beings, right? That question we asked people about, tell us something people don't know about you. And Dean Jamelle Sharpe talked about being a really avid gamer, right? Yeah. And you would never think of the dean of the College of Law is at home playing video games, right? But that to me, really, what I took away from that was this idea that regardless of how high you are up in sort of the leadership hierarchy, you're still a real human being that has outside interests, that possibly has family, and that just brings so many opportunities for connection with somebody who's even a senior leader.
And that's one of the goals of a candid conversation about these topics, right? To see yourself and to see others in these positions, and that it's not this mysterious thing that no one can gain access to. So also looking backward, there was a submitted question to each of you. So I'm going to take Candice's first. This listener wrote in about how you've had to deal with harassment in the past. You've mentioned that. And so wanted to know what leadership lessons have you taken from these experiences or one in particular?
Wow. Yes. So dealing with harassment isn't fun, and it isn't for the faint at heart. So especially when an employee is harassing a supervisor. So I've learned that harassment is harassment thrives, and it grows in an environment where the leaders or where people fail to speak up. So you really have to have an environment where you feel safe, and you have to have an environment where you feel like you can come to work, where you feel like you are safe to be there, but also safe to share your voice. And so the first leadership lesson that I learned is that you have to speak up, and because silence protects the wrong people. So that's the first leadership lesson that I learned. Also, the second one is that boundaries are forms of leadership. And so again, we always talk about boundaries in terms of making sure that you can set boundaries, but it's very important in terms of when you're dealing with harassment to make sure that you're setting and enforcing boundaries about your personal life and other things. And it's clear that when you're in a leadership position that you have those boundaries, but even when you're not in a leadership position, boundaries are very, very important. And and I don't want to go into details about that, but just making sure that that's critical. The other thing, that authority doesn't equal immunity. So just because you're in a leadership position does not mean that you're immune to other things. You can still be harassed. You can still be taken advantage of. There's still other things. Just because you have a title does not make you immune to other things. And so you don't get a golden ticket just because you are the boss. Things can still happen to you. I think the last leadership lesson that I learned dealing with harassment and being harassed is leadership requires vulnerability and strength. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that you can't ignore it and you have to face it head on and constructively. And I think that being vulnerable, not just allowing my staff to see that it's vulnerable, allowed them to know that this was happening, but also allowed them to know that it's okay to be open about it. And they could see that even though it affected me, we can all learn from those things. So it's, you're human. It's okay for you to be human, and we can still, grow together. So I want to make sure that you're safe, but also, hey, this can happen to anybody. And those are the leadership lessons that I took from that. So.
Wow. Thank you so much. There's so much wisdom packed into there. Yeah. That's a whole episode. We're done, right?
Exactly. That's
okay.
I'm not sure that anything we're going to say after that is going to match that, but I think it's, it's a really fantastic example, especially that last piece of even when you are struggling or the subject of this type of thing as a leader, to be able to show that to your team and within certain boundaries, but just it lets them have the freedom to speak up when they need to speak up too, right?
Yeah, there's some modeling going on. For Chris, a question was wrote in, kind of your reflections and reactions to the outrageous growth that has been happening at your college, Geese College of Business. Just student enrollment, facilities, team members. It has been a time of extreme growth, and just curious from this listener's perspective, what challenges come with that? Like maybe what's a primary challenge, or what do you walk away with? How are you kind of pushing into the future, knowing what you've just experienced?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's probably been my biggest struggle over the last few years, is the growth that we've gone through. I know I've probably mentioned this on the podcast before, but for those who haven't heard it, our college has doubled our number of learners in the last 8 years. A lot of online learners now. We just opened a brand new building. And my team has grown from 8 people when I started 9 years ago to, I think we're at 37 now.
Okay.
So
wow.
Really a huge amount of growth.
Yeah.
And I think the big challenges that come with that are really, they're all people challenges. And if you're hiring that many people over the course of, that few years, and most of that growth has happened in the last 4 years. So we have probably added 2/3 of those positions in the last 3 or 4 years. And what that means is you're in constant hiring mode all the time. And that takes a lot out of an organization, because this isn't, if you're listening and you're living in the private sector, hiring may go a lot faster than it does for us in higher ed.
Candice is shaking her head for the listeners.
So our search is, you're from the time you get from the time you request a new position to the time you actually have somebody on board, the fastest that's going to be is 4 to 5 months, and it often is longer than that. And so you have your own existing team trying to do their jobs in addition to trying to hire people. So that's a huge, like, just organizational load that I don't think people really realize. It's a great problem to have. Like, none of this is complaint, because the growth has been, I've been really grateful for all the
resources
growth.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say is, actually 2 more things. One is that every time you bring somebody new into an organization, that is an additional variable that could lead to interpersonal conflict. And so if you bring in the 37th person, there are 37 potential interpersonal conflicts on your team, right? And we've been lucky. One of the things that I always espouse is hire good humans, right? And when you do that, you decrease the chances for that interpersonal conflict. But when you get that big, and I don't know where the tipping point is.
It's not like there's no chances.
Yeah, right. But you're going to, if you have 37 people on your team, and maybe it's if you have 25 or 20, whatever that number is, not everyone is going to like each other like they're best friends. And so as a leader and manager, trying to help people through those interpersonal conflicts so they don't become sort of toxic on the team, that takes an enormous amount of time. And then the last thing that I would say is we didn't assess how much we needed management as a part of that growth. And we just kept piling new employees on existing managers. And that bit me. We got to a point where a couple of our managers were just completely overloaded, and it started to affect the performance of our team. They were so focused on getting new people on board that our productivity dropped. And so the college is investing all of this resource into us. We have more people, and our productivity goes down. That's not a good combination.
Right.
And so it took me a while to realize, wait a minute, we actually need another layer of management in here. So we now have a 4-tiered organization. We brought in some new managers, and we've been firing on all cylinders since then. And so really realizing and sort of understanding you can hire all these doers to get work done, but you need managers to manage that work.
Candice is double tapping on that with her eyes.
Only because I kind of foresee the next question.
Oh, yes, right. You have linked us up so well to talking about a couple of questions related to the here and now. What you're dealing with today, one of them about this topic of management, because one listener wrote in about, can you describe and talk about the difference between leadership and management? And I know you two most recently through the IT leadership workshop, where I'm like, there's a lot to talk about here. I'm kind of like, was there no podcast episode in season 1 about leadership and management?
We really didn't do the leadership versus management thing.
So I don't know if you wrote in this question and we're like, I want to ask myself about this, but there's a cascade of questions, right? When it comes to what are the differences? How do you assess your strengths and weaknesses? Can you get better in one or the other? What does it mean to maybe realize that you're maybe cut out for one more than one than the other? Maybe it's a different one than the one you're in now, or there's a different mix. So could you, not for a full podcast episode, but kind of touch on this to maybe tee up for a later episode about this difference between
Chris,
leadership
can you
kind
of give that overview?
Yeah. So what we generally talk about in the IT leadership workshop is this concept of lead, manage, do, right? There's this continuum of leadership, management, and then the individual contributor type of thing, and that's what falls under do. The way that I find is best to describe that I think lands with most people, is it's why, what, how, right? So if we think about why we are doing something, what we are doing, and how we are doing it, right? That any organization has to answer those 3 questions. The why and the top level of the what is leadership.
That's where you're focused.
The rest of what and the top level of the how is management. And the rest of the how is doing. Right. So to me, that's how if I had to split it in a 2-minute answer, that's how I would split it.
Why, what, how?
Yeah. Generally, they're always talking about, strategic and vision. And then they're talking about management and organization and goals.
There's so many buzzwords.
And there are lots of, again, all of these things are still applicable to the titles, and you can be strategic and manage, and you can be organizational and lead. But again, I do appreciate when people kind of break it down in those type of ways. So.
Yeah, and I think you have, depending on the size of your organization, the person at the top, like the bigger your organization, the more the person at the top should be doing primarily leadership. Like, and then there's levels below them that do management. But if you have a smaller organization, that person at the top is doing probably equal leadership and management. Yeah. So it all depends on like the context of what you're doing. You know, in my organization now, I would say I'm doing 80% leadership and 15% management, and then 5% sort of individual contributor type of things. But that certainly wasn't the case even just a few years ago when we didn't have. I've got 5 other managers on the team. Sure. So they're doing all of the management for me, right? Maybe I shouldn't say that out loud in a place where my bosses might hear, but like that's.
But you know what they're returning to you is probably a lot of questions from themselves and others about the why, because that doesn't ever seem to be like a one and done answered question. Yeah. Have you noticed similar? Have you had similar trajectory?
Well, different things. So I definitely notice where my strengths lie. And so when I think about the leadership part, it's always kind of that inspiring others and motivating others. And so I excel in those arenas. So not that I cannot manage, I can manage, but it is very much detail oriented and organization. And can I do that? Yes, that is not my strength. I have to focus really hard to do a lot of those things, and putting in that effort is not where I want to focus.
Yeah, you and I are cut of the same cloth when it comes to that, right?
And so I can do it, but others do it better than I do.
Some people love that management piece. They love the sort of the logistics of the organization, right? And like that's not me. Like I don't pay attention to the details enough to do that super well. And so it has been like increasingly good for me to sort of have other people that can do that and delegating those things so that I can focus on the vision. I can focus on
a good vibe.
That inspiration, right? Yeah. And there's also like a big, most people think of like people as a management thing, but I actually see people like in many big ways as a leadership thing.
I see.
So it's about inspiring people. It's about making sure you understand people and developing those relationships with people, developing trust in your team. So when you say row, they get the oars out and they don't even ask questions. They just go with that, right? If you don't build that trust and you haven't set out that vision to where we're going, then people go, what am I using this oar for?
Agreed.
For a second there, I was like, do I know someone on your team named Roe? I was like, when you say Roe, there was a long pause. Well, so that's very helpful because I think it breaks through some of the myths around, like lead is mission statements and non-people, and manage is behavioral, correction. And so it's like all people. Like, I think that's a much more nuanced view. And so almost like a listener had a similar question is this concept of, okay, but it's not only one person is leading and only one person is managing and only one person is doing in that continuum. And there's a triad always, that there's this concept of kind of leading from anywhere. And I know I've heard you all talk about this, and I think some people were picking up on this kind of. Do you have an example of that, not from yourself, of seeing it in someone else, them leading from anywhere? And what is that about how people can lead from anywhere in an organization and not being, hierarchically on top of somebody else or a project or things like that? What does that look like?
Yeah, that can happen from anywhere. It can happen in work areas. It can happen in regular life. So the first example that pops into my head is not a work example because I'm thinking of something that just happened the other day, like in a family environment. Okay. And so my youngest, like my daughter, it was like a work example. It was like a school project or something. There was just a school example, and she was not a designated leader for anything, but they had something that needed to get done, and nobody wanted to take the.
It was like a nose goes situation.
It was nobody was like, "Hey, we need to do that." And so, she sent out the message, "Hey, we should go ahead and get together." Oh, let's go. And so, starting to just say, are people free? Sending out the poll. Hey, okay, we're going to start to get to meet. And so just, it looks like everybody's free on Friday. Okay, cool. I'll go ahead and so it doesn't take, nobody was assigned a leader, but it needs to get done. And so at that point, it's like, okay, now cool, we're going to meet. And so it doesn't have to happen, but the due date was imminent and someone had to start it. And
that's a great example. I actually have one that's, I think, work related that's similar to that, in that we have realized that in our application development process at work, that we're missing kind of a pretty significant role in that process, and that's the role of a business analyst. And what that role basically is you are taking requirements from a client and you are turning them into technical specifications for the team to build, right? We've always sort of done that, just like whoever steps up and does that. But we're realizing that for our bigger projects, we need somebody to really like have that role assigned to them, but we weren't sure like who on the team had the skills to do it. And one of our developers, from a previous job, she had done that a lot in her previous job. And so she volunteered on this really big, critical project that like the eyes of the college were on us to get this particular thing completed. She just stepped into the void and said, I will do this. And she did a like spectacular job to the point where she created an opportunity for herself. And she just got promoted, and now that business analyst responsibility is actually written into her promoted job description. So it was this, she led and ended up getting rewarded for leading as well. But it's those opportunities where you see like there's a gap, right? Your daughter saw a gap. Like stepping into that gap is like, to me, it's like the best opportunities for leadership are when you see a gap that is a real need in an organization. Being able to fill that gap is incredibly important.
Yeah, I think we have so many of those opportunities that our campus does well that we don't even notice. So like we have a lot of infinity groups and various other things that other campuses try to emulate, and we don't even notice it. So we've been doing it for so long, and they go, oh, you guys are doing that great thing. And then they are like, oh yeah, Illinois does that great thing. And we're like, huh? Yeah, and so it's like that Midwest nice. We don't even know that we're doing it. And they're like, oh, I just copied that thing that you did. And so it's always been doing that.
Well, you just unlocked my head, because anywhere, because it has a couple of connotations there, anywhere from within my little organization, but also anywhere in terms of the world is watching in a lot of regards. And sometimes, you're like, no, this is just normal. Could be impressive and leaderful to somebody from the outside looking in.
Yeah, it reminded me, because we have like the mentorship program that we've done on our campus for the Women in Technology group, and some other groups like EDUCAUSE, as well as the Big Ten organization. And they said, oh, I see that you guys have been doing that for a while for your Women's Technology group. They're like, can we see your application? We're like, oh, sure. And then they leveraged it and used it for the Big Ten, and they've used it for other things. And so,
I mean, our campus has so many examples of people stepping into those opportunities and leading from where they are. Like the number of task forces and working groups and committees that are led by people that are, somewhere in the middle or even at the front lines of their organization. They step in and do that thing, and it's not necessarily even in their job description to do it. They're seeing an opportunity to contribute, and that's there's so many of those opportunities and examples that we could point out.
Yeah, it's really upon listening to you, it's really an optimistic kind of lens to see that you can like see the best in what that group project could become if only we were to get started. So you go, I'm seeing the best in what this can become, so I'm gonna do it, or I see what I could become. There's another question that is maybe trying to address cynicism. And not, when things are all rosy and optimistic. So this question is about, how do you respond to airing of criticism that happens? I would take it maybe from like the people you're closest to and around, and maybe even responsible for, right? How do you respond to this criticism that's happening? Especially if it's beyond your control, I've been involved in situations like that, so I'm waiting to hear some advice or how you think of this. It's the type of thing where like maybe the criticism is valid, but it could turn a conversation or a group dynamic somewhat into like airing of grievances and negative. And so what's the balance to be struck there, or how do you lead through that?
So I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
You're like, I got something.
No, well, who knows? So usually I would say I would validate the concerns, recognize the concerns. That's usually the first thing, especially if I share the empathy. So if I share that, I would empathize and let them know, I share your concerns, especially if I do, especially if I share those frustrations. And then I would be honest and talk about what I could control, because I can't overpromise something that I can't change. So I can't overpromise and say, I'm going to change the world if I can't change the world. But I can advocate for what I can do. So if there are things that I can advocate for, I will try my best to do those things, but I can't overpromise. Does that make sense?
It does. And you don't even have to say it right then, right?
Right.
You could think on it and not say, I commit myself to coming back and telling you what I can do, but you could take it seriously and go, I am going to come back to that person or that group and kind of respond in earnest with what is possible.
Yeah, but realistically, you can't control everything. So it's like you can validate, you can empathize, you can say, those concerns are there, just so that you can show and build that trust, and then think on it. And sometimes you just have to be realistic and just understand that you're not going to be able to change things, like especially if there's laws or policies, some things you just can't change. So definitely don't overpromise and say, we're going to fix this when you might not be able to.
Listening is a very good first key.
I approach it the same way I approach personal relationships. Like if someone comes to you and starts with negative energy, what I will always, with people that I really trust or that trust me, I will say, okay, what mode are we in here? Are you in vent mode? Do you just need to get something off your chest? Do you want me to coach you through this to try to, help you find your own solution to this? Or do you want me to just give you advice and tell you how to fix this? And not everything can be fixed, but do you want advice on how to deal with this particular thing, even if it's outside of our control?
What's your motivation around sharing what you're sharing now?
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody needs a good vent. Every once in a while, every single one of us, these people that just jam it all down and never.
If you think you don't,
you need to.
Everybody
wake
does.
up. It's stoicism doesn't work for very long. So find that person that you can vent to and help them understand that this all I'm doing is venting. You have a good friend who comes to you and this is just apoplectically venting at you, and you start trying to solve their problem and it immediately, maybe that's not what they needed. They just needed a vent, right? So setting that stage is really important. If that becomes a habit and it's just nothing but the same person coming to you and venting about the same thing,
especially in a work context,
right? In a work context, that becomes culture, right? And you don't want that. You absolutely don't want that, because you have to say, there is absolutely nothing we can do about that thing. So we've aired our grievances, leave it in the past. Just let's work on from that. You need to remind them sometimes. And sometimes it's a really direct conversation. It's we have wasted 15 hours talking about this topic that is going to go nowhere. So let's focus our energy somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those roles of leadership is, where are we headed? And if we're still staying on the same thing.
And I think it's especially what I was describing is kind of a one-on-one.
Sure.
But if someone is doing that in public on your team or in the organization,
like a group conversation,
you need to nip those in the bud a lot faster, because negativity becomes really infectious, and then it really does become culture on your team.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah. I have all sorts of thoughts on how social media starts becoming real life, and we don't realize it. We kind of didn't react to negativity the way we do now. So let's look forward. How do you keep composure amidst uncertainty and pressure in higher ed writ large? I think I kind of took some liberties with a few questions that were sort of related to this topic of just, there's a lot going on right now in higher ed, in the world and in the U.S., but let's focus on your IT leaders in higher ed. How do you deal with that?
It's really hard. You can just breathe at this point. That's kind of what I can do. I've got several employees where, they're they can't go anywhere. They can't go home. They can't take a vacation. They can't travel because of the world. And every email that comes out, it's like, well, there are policies preventing them from being able to feel safe to do things. And so that is the world we live in right now. And I can't change that. I can't do anything other than be there for them and listen. And
yeah.
I think it's, in addition to what Candice just said, like, I mean, just being there. And I sent out a note, it was last week actually, to our entire team and said, understand there's a ton going on in the world. Like, reach out if you just need to talk. Like, it doesn't have to be anything about work. Yeah. Like, if you just need someone to talk to about this that sort of understands what's going on, reach out. And I've actually had a few of our staff just reach out and kind of discuss a particular topic. And and just being there in that space for them, I think is really important. The other thing that I think is kind of critical is, like, we as leaders are not immune to the stresses, right?
Back to the bottling it up and thinking you're...
But we need to be solid for our teams, right? We can't, when they bring stress to us, if we add our own stress to that, all that does is like skyrocket their own stress, right? But that doesn't mean we bottle it all up ourselves. Like, I'll be transparent here. Like, last spring, I went and re-upped with my therapist.
Of course.
Just to like think through some of these things, because it's, there's a lot. Like, we're, as leaders, we carry a lot. We carry a lot of the stress and the pain of our teams, of our colleges, of higher ed in general, right? Higher ed is frankly under attack in many, many ways right now. And it's, so there, we have to take care of ourselves in that process. I think there's one more thing I'd like to add there is, there is opportunity in every crisis. And we can't just sit here and say, higher ed is under attack. Oh, woe be us. We need to figure out, how do we take this crisis and position higher ed for the future, right? How do we change so that we're better, so we're less likely to be attacked, right? You may say, let's just duck our heads and wait for this to be over. Like, don't put a target on you. But I really do think that this sentiment isn't going to go away with just a change in national leadership, right? There is a sentiment that higher ed isn't of great value right now. We need to do what we can do to help the university leverage technology to make it better, to increase its value, and to decrease the cost of it for the students who come here.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, people, I just have a hard time believing that your average person is going to look back and say, I'm so glad they survived by just kind of laying low, right?
Yeah.
Like, people want to see action. They want to see you're plugged in and hearing me, back to your and especially with what you led off with, Candice, just saying breathe, right? Like, you were talking about modeling for your team. It's like, if they're feeling suffocating, you can say, I'm breathing right now. I'm trying to breathe. I'm learning how to take breaths. Yeah. That models for people that they too can do that if they're feeling like they can't breathe.
Well, and I think one of the ways that I've finally figured out how to breathe myself is I'm kind of a political junkie. I have been for a long time. I follow the news. I follow social media. This last 9 months has been exhausting as a result of that. And just recently, I have an app on my phone right now, and I won't mention the name of the app because they're not sponsors.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's get them
sponsored.
But I have an app on my phone that allows me to block social media and block news. And there's a setting on it that makes it so that you cannot turn the block off once you start the session. And so I now, from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., those are the only 2 hours of the day that I can see social media and news, because then that allows me the rest of the day to actually breathe. Because I was explaining to someone the other day, if I didn't have the internet, my life would be picturesque, right? Because I wouldn't know what was going on outside, because what is happening here is relatively copacetic, right?
As the young people say, he touches grass. When
The IT leader does not want internet right now. I think that's key.
But yeah, it's you have to set your own boundaries, because if you let all of the energy from everybody else like sap your own energy, you cannot lead effectively.
And to that point, if I might add a little commentary, because I am on the mic now, seeing recent mass mails, albeit it's just from my vantage point, reading an email from our provost or our new chancellor, it's helpful to see an acknowledgement of strain and issues, but also, I believe in what we're doing here. You can too. It's so helpful to not like see desperation and people jumping ship. It's fulfilling in some ways.
Yeah, I was telling somebody, I was in a meeting yesterday where it's a bunch of these like high level stakeholders talking about the next generation ERP for the finance, HR, student information systems.
Okay, what does ERP stand for?
Enterprise resource planning
something. Okay. So it's we call it Banner is the product that we have.
Oh, I see.
So it's like it's the main data repository for all of the administrative data. We're talking about what's the next one, and I said across the table at one point, I'm like, we get to come in here every single day and contribute to the generation of knowledge and expertise in the world. Right. That's a pretty good mission, right? Sure. And if you remind yourself of that, you can get through anything.
Yeah. I've got two more questions. What's a piece of advice you would regularly give to a professional kind of earlier in their career journey? Is that advice different maybe from somebody that's in different stages of their career? I modified this one from young professional, because maybe someone's in a career spot, but they wouldn't call themselves young, and you wouldn't either, but they're still newer in their trajectory in something. So what's a piece of advice you would give them, their listeners?
I think for me it's related to a previous answer, and it's find the gaps. Okay. Find the gaps in your organization. Find out what needs to be done, like the pain points that's preventing your organization from accomplishing what they want to do, and figure out how you can contribute to filling that gap. I think that applies across your entire career. It applies when you're early career. It applies mid career. It even applies to us as more senior leaders.
It grows with you,
right? It does, and you will. I haven't seen anybody that has failed who has successfully identified those places because then people go, oh, he's a solutions person. She's she really gets things done. She does something for the organization that was really needed and stepped in to do it before she was asked. Right? That will reward you 10 times over the course of your career if you're the type of person that does that.
That's awesome.
So I know that it's not the best piece of advice, but I do share it. And I share, make sure that you enjoy the people that you're working around. And the reason why I mention that is because the people that you work with, even though you have a life outside of work, because work is not everything, you spend a lot of time with the people that you work with. And sometimes people get themselves into an environment where they feel like they are alone, or they feel like they can't, do anything, and they just feel desolate, and they're just and I don't, it's very sad. They're just oh, woe is me, and I don't like anybody at work. And I'm just like, why did you pick this job? And I'm not saying you have to be friends with everybody at work, but if you go to the job and nobody there is
you should like them as humans,
right? At least you got to have at least a positive attitude of something there. And so it's not like it's a good piece of advice, but you can't go into an environment and not enjoy the environment. So
that's the best advice. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, that's great.
That's really good advice.
Because people don't, it's not anything about your career. It's but you have to pick a place where it's enjoy the environment where you're picking. So
there could be a misconception early in career, or even bred in some way during a career, that everything is kind of atomized. So the people that are around you, or physically or organizationally, don't really matter much. And I think it's helpful to cut through that and say, no, it really does matter who you're working with. Because if you're thinking, I'm not working with anybody, it's probably not looking great in terms of how you can contribute, because you're just one person, so it'll all come down to just you.
No, because a lot of people go, oh, but they're not going to be my best friends and work. And I'm like, I'm not talking about friends. I'm just like, you got to at least like the people that you're going to be seeing all the time.
I mean, you're like, for most jobs, you're spending more time with these people than you spend with your family.
Oh, man, my poor family. Yeah.
No, but it's true, right? We're
yeah.
It's at least we're in the same location as these people, like maybe more than our family. Because you get, you might see your family for an hour in the morning, and then you see them for 3 hours before you get the kids in bed. Well, you just spent 8 hours with these people at work,
right?
And so it's just, Candice, that's great advice. I love that, because I can't even fathom like spending a long time in a place with people that
you
I just don't
despise.
like. I don't like. That's great advice.
Okay, so last question on the looking forward. Unless you've already done this, would you rather go skydiving or scuba diving?
Oh, definitely skydiving for me.
Between the two divings. So you've never done either of them. Why are you picking skydiving?
I would definitely go skydiving. One, because I like the thrill of like, I want to go skydiving. I would sign up today and go skydiving. Scuba diving, I would not do, because one, I'm a really poor swimmer. Like my son is a lifeguard, so he would save me. But like me and my husband, like, oh my God, the last time we jumped out into the ocean, we almost died. And like, I was like, oh my God. And I'm a really bad swimmer. And I just, no. And I only have one lung, so I just, me in the water.
The one lung.
I just, oh my God, me and scuba diving, no. So I have a fear of like, no.
Okay, that water, would get you.
So I'm going skydiving as well.
Oh, okay. This is not an announcement. You're just picking that.
Yeah, I'm just picking that.
Okay.
I'll go with skydiving as my choice. And that's, I actually went with some family and friends, and they went skydiving, and I chose not to. I was on the ground I had like the telephoto lens, taking pictures and everything.
Yeah.
And when they got down to the ground, and like I saw the look on their faces, I'm like, why did I not do this?
I mean, I've done a lot of the zip lining through all the things, and like so I've done a lot of height things. So I'm not afraid of heights. I love heights.
Okay. And if there's another reason for it too. I grew up swimming like crazy. My grandparents had a pool. We were over there every day during the summer. We were fish. I would swim a mile a day in their pool. And I tried snorkeling in their pool a lot. And I have 2 perfectly healthy lungs. And I nearly drowned every time I tried to use a snorkel. So something about
you're looking underwater, but your lungs are filling up.
The coordination of that was there was a lot of sputtering and swallowing water, and so scuba diving not for me.
You can get pretty messed up with the kind of coming back out of pressurize, whatever that is.
I think there's more chance that I would die scuba diving than skydiving. So I'll go with skydiving.
There's so many more sharks there than in the sky.
I don't know. I don't trust myself for the coordination of being able to inhale and exhale properly.
But you could scream while skydiving.
No. Okay. Skydiving has to be tandem, though.
Yes.
Like I would never do skydiving by myself.
You need to graduate to solo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, on the next episode, you will both be jumping out of a plane. I've commandeered the podcast and have come up with all the topics and episode conceits.
Can we bring the studio with us? Can that come out?
Maybe a little microphone. I'll do it too, and I'll hold it out.
We'll have a GoPro on our head.
Well, thank you for being guests on your own podcast. I don't know how to end it since I'm not the host, but thanks.
Well, thank you, Bob, for doing this for us. Really fun to answer these questions. And thank you to the viewers and listeners who submitted questions. We put that out there. It's kind of a busy time of year. And at first I was like, oh, no one's going to send anything. And then all of a sudden we got a kind of a cascade of questions. So, Bob, thank you for kind of collating those and being an amazing host today.
Sure. Appreciate it, Bob. Thanks so much.
No problem. All right.
All right. We'll see you all at the next episode.